So I hijacked my book tour and turned it into a shelter book tour. What I saw changed the trajectory of my life. I had always thought rescue dog fostering was an interim in my life. Foster some dogs, write about it, and the situation improves. Then I go back to my real life, writing novels, pulling weeds, hiking in the woods, and worrying about my now adult children. Instead, I can't seem to stay with a story long enough to see it through to publication. My gardens have been plowed under, my hiking boots sit idle, and the kids are traipsing all over the globe without the protection of my nonstop nagging. I am too distracted by these dogs and the people who fight for them. After visiting the shelters, I had to do something. This book is the first something. I was, and still am, convinced that if people knew what was happening in the rural southern shelters, they would not stand for it. They, like me, would be moved. They would get involved. They would help. I can't say it enough. It's not that people don't care, it's that they don't know. So let me tell you. Note, throughout this book you will read the term pit bull. I want to be clear here that there is no such breed as a pit bull. You might as well call them unicorns. Pit bull is an umbrella term for dogs with a muscular build, large head, tiny ears, and hearts of gold. They may or may not have American Staffordshire Terrier or American Bull Terrier or any number of terriers or bulldogs in their heritage. There is so much I could say about the misinformation, biased press, and complete nonsense that surrounds these dogs. They are near and dear to my heart, and I struggled with how to label them in this book. I considered putting the term in quotes, but it became confusing and awkward. So, suffice it to say that while I use the term pit bull, I don't believe in it, and I am fully aware that no such breed exists. I truly hope that someday everyone is lucky enough to know the love of a dog erroneously labeled pit bull. Chapter 1. Loose Dog. Gayla got out, Brady yelled. It was a postcard-worthy summer day in south-central Pennsylvania, the kind that almost makes the cold gray winters worth it. I was at my desk, shades drawn, deep into a dreaded edit of a novel in progress. My first reaction was fury. My son Brady and his friends had taken over our kitchen, reuniting over Mountain Dew and memories, trading notes about their second year of college. The last time I'd seen Gayla, our foster dog, she was contentedly hanging out on the Frank bed in the kitchen, enjoying their antics. The Frank bed was an enormous dog bed monogrammed with the name Frank. It was the most sought-after spot for dogs in our kitchen. Previous adopters gave it to us when they returned a foster dog named Frank, and since then it had been the prize lounging spot for countless foster dogs and the background for hundreds of pictures. So what was she doing outside instead of on the Frank bed, and why weren't all those able-bodied young men out there tracking her down? Their laughter and loud music would have drowned out my questions if there had been time to ask them. Having recently returned from college, Brady hadn't lived with Gayla long enough to know that a loose Gayla was an all-out emergency. I sprang from my ergonomically correct desk chair in such a panic that my feet tangled in the folded metal. I landed in a fuming heap, kicked the chair off me, and dashed out the door. Gayla was sprinting across the pasture in search of the horses. Her long brown form galloped back and forth across the hillside, her clever mind sifting through her options. It wasn't the first time Gayla had escaped. The last few times she'd also run after the horses, chasing them from one end of the pasture to the other, ignoring my pleas to come right now. She only heeded them when she caught a hoof to her side from my elderly mare Coco, who abided no foals, and certainly not canine ones. This particular afternoon, though, the horses were shut in their stalls out of the heat, except for Coco, who was in the paddock with a run-in shed for shade. Coco is a strong-willed creature, not unlike Gayla, and won't tolerate being closed inside a stall. About the same time Gayla spotted her, I saw Ian, my 15-year-old son, running across the grass, trying to put himself between Gayla and the fence that separated the pasture from the paddock. Gayla ran toward him, but then made a quick dodge around him before ducking underneath the bottom fence board into the paddock. The delight on her face was obvious. Gayla set her sights on Coco, barking with abandon, darting toward her, and then dashing away each time Coco turned her hind end at her. Ian yelled for her, but Gayla only increased her frenzy. Coco sprinted around the tiny paddock in a panic, using her quarter-horse acceleration to stay out of Gayla's reach. Gayla couldn't be deterred by my yelling or any of the treats I held up. Minutes felt like hours as we watched, helpless to stop the inevitable.